And so what I didn't like about traditional publisher is I'm not looking to be a New York Times bestseller. I'm not looking to sell 100,000 copies. I didn't want that pressure from a publisher. We're like, you need to sell more. I am doing this. It's going to sell however many it sells. I am doing this more so for the speaking, for the credibility, to be able to get the word out there.
Hey, I'm Tanya Bhattacharya, and you are listening to the Campfire Circle podcast. We are all about breaking down the boardroom table as the ultimate space of leadership, and instead replacing it with a campfire. Because that's where we share our stories. That's where we build warm community, and that is where there's always room. I'm building an impactful business in public through thought leadership, and I'm taking you behind the scenes all along the way. So if you want to stand out as you stand up for your mission, you are in the right place. Hey, Dana, it's so good to have you here. Thanks for joining us on the Campfire Circle podcast.
I love any time that I get to shimmy around the campfire with you, girl.
Congratulations are in order. Congratulations. Big excitement over here on the launch of your upcoming book about monthly giving.
Thank you. She's real.
Yeah, there she is. Okay, this is an audio only podcast. Y'all can't see it, but I am seeing the cover right in front of my eyes. You're going to see it too by the time this episode comes
It looks
live.
like a tequila sunrise.
You know what? It is giving me those vibes. It's giving me like vacation vibes, reading it by the pool. Like, it's beautiful. And thank you for sharing the behind the scenes of how this book came to life with our guests today.
I think it's so important because if listener, you're anything like me, I thought a book was never possible. I would look on the shelves and you're in awe of these people that have written a book and the process that goes into that, and thinking that you have to write a proposal and get a publisher. And we'll talk about all the things, but I'm so excited to actually share how I did this I wrote it in 4 weeks and published it in 4 months. So your girl's kind of a little crazy. However, it's doable.
I can't wait to get into this. This is really good. I just want to say, like, you are such a go-to voice and an expert and guide for organizations that are wanting to build a monthly giving campaign of excited, bought-in monthly supporters. So before we even get into the book, what is your story behind picking monthly giving as like your thing, your consulting niche? What did you grow through to become that guide you are today?
Yeah, it's such a good question. It's interesting. I had my business in 2017 is when I started. And that was not at all my focus. I was a digital marketing consultant and like an agency. I did social media for all different clients, purpose-driven and nonprofits. When I moved to LA, which was at that same time, I started following this organization called Dressember. And Blythe Hill is the founder. I saw her TED Talk on YouTube and became fascinated with her and the movement. It's an anti-trafficking organization, which has since, I talk about this in the book, which I think is super cool. They went through a merger and acquisition with IJM, International Justice Mission, which I think is a whole other podcast topic, which I love that she did that. But for the years that I was following her, I never donated. I was just a hype kind of girl. Like, I would share things and I would engage. And then they launched The Collective, which was their monthly giving program. And human trafficking is such a passionate issue of mine, and it is huge, and it seems impossible to end. And I thought, what is a one-time $25 gift going to do? I was just starting my business. I moved from New York. I was like way in debt, but I wanted to give, and that's just who I am. I want to be charitable. But I was like, what is that going to do? But then I was like, oh, they have this option now of a monthly giving. And what if I gave $25 every month? And then that's multiplied by the hundreds of people who are also giving their dollar amounts per month. And then maybe together we're doing something. And so I joined their monthly giving program. I'm still a monthly donor to this day, years later. And I loved the communication I received from them. And then I just started taking more personal interest as a marketing expert working with nonprofits of, are other organizations asking for monthly gifts? Who's doing this well? What's working? What's not working? Who do I feel called to give to? I call like a secret shopper of monthly donor programs. And I just loved how I personally felt like a philanthropist of an organization. And I thought that could only be possible if I was donating millions or if I was giving an endowment. And they made me feel so seen in their organization. And that's what started. It was just like me as a donor, this natural interest in, okay, I want to take everything I know about marketing and communications and fundraising and dial it in specifically to this.
That's so spot on. Like that resonates with me so much. And you and I have known each other for a long time. So my background is more in like major gifts fundraising, but I really love how you talked about sort of the collective movement that gets created out of this and like the compound gains of people's commitment and just people having skin in the game. The way that you spoke to how you really had skin in the game around that. There's something to be said about the action of choosing to make a long-term commitment to an organization. Like one of our founding mothers of the organization I used to work for used to say, when you make a commitment, the universe conspires to assist you. And I think that's definitely part of the value of like monthly giving.
Now I just give monthly to so many organizations because I just love to hear from them, honestly. And it feels like you're doing something bigger when you're giving them the ability for this sustainable revenue. I also know that's what they need, right? Like they need to be able to project and to be able to say, okay, we know we have this solid base that comes in every single month with a high retention rate. And so I feel good about that gift when I make it.
Yeah, it creates like a sustainability and a confidence for organizations to be able to step out and take big risks because they know that funding is coming. So yeah, all that is incredible. And like I said, I can't wait to hold a copy of your book in my hands. And I do think of a book as like the thought leadership final boss. It's like the Bowser in the castle. So what I'm trying to say by that is there's nothing more credibility boosting than publishing a book. It is like the final boss. It opens a lot of doors. It builds a lot of trust. But at the same time, it's also really scary. It's like a lot of work. Do I really have what it takes to fill up so many pages? I would love you to
Yes.
tell me about your decision to write a book. Tell me about that. Yes. Like, how did you know it was time?
So a couple things. One, the book is called The Monthly Giving Mastermind, and it's a framework that I teach to build, grow, and sustain subscriptions for good. The mastermind concept came up because I was part of a mastermind for my business. And I realized, I know you're part of one too, and it is amazing when you're surrounded by like-minded people who literally just want to help you succeed and you want to help each other along like similar problems and challenges, and you're sharing. And so I created literally my monthly giving mastermind program to launch monthly giving programs. And then I thought, every time we're getting together for a call, there's so many things I wish other nonprofits could hear in this conversation, or an idea that an organization had. I'm like, oh, that's so good. If only like everybody out there could hear about it. And so the book is a combination of my framework, yes, but within each framework, I interviewed 15 different nonprofits of all different causes, of all different sizes. Because I think this is the other thing. In the monthly giving space, most of the time we hear about the big guys, right? The big nonprofits that have hundreds of thousands of monthly donors. And those are the examples. And that's not the majority of organizations. And so the book was, I want to open the lens, open the mastermind, invite people in to learn from organizations of all different sizes. And then to your point about credibility, and as a thought leader, something that I love to do and that fills me up is speak. There is nothing more credible than having a book that I can talk about on stages about a topic that I'm so passionate about. So twofold. One, it's to like literally let other nonprofits learn from other nonprofits and create community amongst that. And then B is for my business is to hopefully be able to speak about this topic and be more known for it. Because I think we're always looking for what do you want to be known for. And so to your point, mine is going to be around monthly giving.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's so good because every time you speak, and I'm sure and we can get into this later when we talk about like promotional strategies and stuff like that, but I'm sure that's going to be a great thing that you can offer to different event conveners and conference hosts as like something you could offer along with your speaking.
Yes. One thing about that too, for anybody who's looking to get started in the speakers world, in our sector, at least, a lot of times there's no money for speakers, which I do not agree with. Even for my monthly giving summit, literally every single person is being paid. A book, it's called a BILF, is what they call it, book in lieu of fee. And so, I know it. When I heard it too, I was like,
oh my goodness.
BILF, BLIF, BILF. And so this opens the opportunity for conversations with event planners to say, oh, you don't have a speaker budget, but do you have a marketing budget? Do you have a promotions budget? Do you have like swag budget? Like it lets you tap into other things.
What a great like negotiation tool and just an easy thing that you can offer as a value add. I love that. Something you said earlier also, you talked about you interviewed 15 nonprofits for the book. Is that correct?
Yes.
See, that's so great because when I think about filling up the pages of a book, like I have a client that I did some like LinkedIn ghostwriting for, and she wanted to write a book. She was at a stage of her thought leadership journey where I need a book. And she said, Tanya, can you help me write this book? Can you ghostwrite it for me? And I said, no, ma'am.
Oof.
And she said, well, you write all these shorter pieces for me. You write all these LinkedIn posts for me. So isn't a book just all these shorter pieces put together? And I don't think it is. I don't think it is quite that. I think there's something different about how a book comes together. And I love that the interviews were a part of your process. And so maybe tell me more about that. But I would just love to know about your specific book writing process. Like, how did you write this book in 4 weeks?
So first of all, I hired a book consultant. Shout out to Jody. And I had in my own head how I thought I wanted it to be formatted. And then after talking through it with an outside source, completely changed. We did a VIP day together. Mm-hmm. And by the end of the day, we had written a table of contents.
Nice.
So the book is structured. I knew I wanted to share the 5-part framework. So I knew that was going to be 5 chapters worth. And then in those 5 chapters, I knew I was going to pull in case studies, stories from the organizations that matched that framework. So that part was actually the easiest to write because it's something I talk about all the time. And I just had to formulate it into words.
Yeah.
When you get in the creative groove, and maybe listener, you felt this way, it just flows like when you're writing. And then after the framework, you need to have a beginning and an end. And then the beginning ended up being broken into a couple different things because I wanted to give an introduction. What's it all about? What is the 5-step framework? What's my story? So these all become different chapters at the beginning. What is the subscription economy? Like it all provides context for what we're about to dive into. And I'm happy to talk about this too. I ended up going with a hybrid publisher. And they said for a book to be marketable on mainstream for a good price point, and for somebody to feel like they're paying for like their money's worth of a size of a book, you need to have about 50 to 60,000 words. And I was like, okay. Holy Jesus. But then when we actually went through and we broke down the chapters, which I have a part 1 and I have a part 2, and there's 11 chapters, it breaks it down. And then it feels, if you divide 50,000 by that, it's way more digestible.
Right.
And then there were some chapters where I was like, whoa, I'm at 5,500 words. Like, how did that happen? But I took it in bite-sized chunks. And that's how I was able to get through it.
I think that's so good. And when you said that you wrote a chapter notes about words, when I think about doing a training for an organization, or even when I think about sometimes doing like a solo podcast episode, a training at least is about 5,000 words. So if you listener have ever done a training for an organization as a part of your consulting work or as a part of your nonprofit advocacy work, that's a chapter.
Yeah, you definitely have a story in you, listener, I bet. And it's really making the time to write it and put it down. And then I loved the process of having the developmental editors from my publisher because they look at it to see, does this make sense? Does the order of this make sense? And there were certain things where I was like, oh, totally, that should be here and this should be there. But you are so close to it, it's hard to see that.
Yeah. And I think the more of an expert you are on a certain topic, the more difficult it is for you to have that objective viewpoint because you're so in it. So actually, I would love to explore this more with you. All of us who deal in content and getting our words out there know that writing is just half the battle. And the other part of the battle is getting it out into the world or distribution. It's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
And so tell me about your decision about publishing, because I know there's a couple options that authors can go with, like self-publishing, hybrid publishing, or even pitching a traditional sort of like mainstream publisher. So how did you decide to go with a hybrid publisher?
So I was approached by a publisher at first, and we jumped on a call, and I've heard that mainstream publishers, unless you are Michelle Obama, there is no like advance that people might think about getting. They take on the back end like 70+% of every book until you sell X amount of copies, a lot of copies. There's not a ton of help with editing, but you still need to hire your own people to do that. Unless you are, again, unless you're Michelle Obama and you're getting prepaid and you're getting the full gamut and they're putting money towards marketing, I really like having more control. And then you don't own your book, the publisher does, and like the IP of it. So then I was like, okay, could I self-publish this? I find myself like a semi tech savvy person, but girl, the business of making a book is a whole other world. And I was like, I don't know what I don't know. So from how to create an ISBN, which is in the barcode that goes on the back of the book, to trim sizes, what size should the book be, the interior, the fonts, the structure. And I was just like, how to upload to Amazon and figure out distribution. And then how do you get on all the things? I realized that starting to price out like a designer, a copy editor, like all these, and then project manage them was going to be expensive and a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't know, am I making the right decision? Is this like for me? So serendipitously, Copper Books is my hybrid publisher. And how this happened again is just like good positive energy vibes. So I would happen to be on a call with a PR friend of mine in LA. And I told her about wanting to write the book. And she goes, oh my gosh, have you talked to my friend Allie at Copper Books? Now, I have been following Copper Books because they're known as an app. They're an app that creates a community for readers and authors to connect.
Okay.
All that they have been, which is I thought was super cool. So I was like, yeah, I know Allie. Like, I love her app. They're launching hybrid publishing this year. And I was like, what? I am their first book that has gone through their hybrid process, like from start to finish. I connected with Allie, and this gets even crazier. So we got on a call and I explained to her what the book was. I had the table of contents. I had the title, everything. And she goes, I have to publish your book. My career started in the nonprofit space in anti-human trafficking efforts because I read a book about it.
Wow.
And
oh my gosh.
I was like, get out of here. So she has been lovely and the whole team. And so I paid them to publish my book. And that includes like I had a developmental editor, a copy editor. I had marketing calls with their team. They managed the designer with the interior, the cover. They upload everything to Amazon. They get it all published on the barnesnoble.coms. They do all that.
So your responsibility was to write the book and show up as an involved participant kind of thing.
Yes. And I still definitely have to market it and doing all the promo and the press and all that stuff. But they provide like suggestions and strategy.
Okay. Amazing. You may or may not
like
be
$1 per book. That's important to say.
Okay. So you pay them to do this work. And then once it's published, they take $1 per book.
Yes. But then I own it.
But then you own it. Okay. That's a big deal.
Yes. And so what I didn't like about traditional publisher is I'm not looking to be a New York Times bestseller. I'm not looking to sell 100,000 copies. I didn't want that pressure from a publisher where like, you need to sell more. I am doing this. It's going to sell however many it sells. I am doing this more so for the speaking, for the credibility, to be able to get the word out there. So it also has to do with what's your intention. And that wasn't my intent.
That's huge. And for you to be able to focus on this very specific topic, I think will create that resonance that I think is also your intention versus just like having a mainstream best-selling book, which doesn't make sense for you and your goals. So are you able to share what the cost is for going with a hybrid publisher?
Yeah, of course. So I paid about just over $14,000.
Okay. That's pretty amazing, though, for having an asset that you can use time and time again for your speaking engagements, to speak to a potential client at a conference. Think about the ROI on that.
Oh, it's huge. So what I ask for in speaking gigs now is $8,500. So if I book 2 speaking gigs from the book, I also have a whole lot of partners where I'm going to do wholesale sales and sometimes like book in lieu of fee, right? If they're going to buy, I don't know, $3,500 worth of a book, like very quickly, I'll meet even on that. So to me, it was my time is so valuable to me. I have a 17-month-old little girl, like life is busy. And so it was going to be very comparable to self-publishing for the cost that I received from a copy editor and a designer. It was going to be near net. And so I was like, why not go with a trusted source who knows what the heck they're doing?
Absolutely. And I feel like you've probably already booked those 2 speaking sessions.
What's wild, I will tell you this. I have just gotten asked to speak in Italy.
What?
Like, what? Yeah. What the heck? The book's not even technically, well, yes, it is out September 3rd and it's up for pre-sale now, but September 3rd it comes out. But it's just having a book associated. I was like, what in the world? People know who I am from Italy?
It's just all coming together. It's all serendipitous, like from meeting the publisher to the speaking engagement, like it's all coming together. I love this for you. Okay, so I have a question because earlier you mentioned you still have to promote the book. And I have found that sometimes that is something that people don't always think about. Okay, I got to write the book. I got to get the book out. But listener friends, if you are going to write a book, which I hope you do, having a marketing strategy to get the book out into the world is really key. And it's a really exciting time, right? To make a splash. It's like an exciting time to make some noise about your mission and your work in the world. So what is your launch strategy, your go-to market plan? What are you doing to get the book in front of as many right fit people as possible?
Yes. So marketing is what I love. So the book part was definitely the hardest. And I was like, I could market all day because that's what I love to do. Why I rushed the process of the publishing was I was already planning a monthly giving virtual summit on September 5th and 6th. And so I wanted to have the book ready because the whole summit is about monthly giving. And so I wanted to have it ready for that time. So if all things go to plan, there'll be 2,500 people there. There's already like 1,300 registered or so now. And so that's one audience that I will be talking about with the book. Then I have a speaking gig already booked in Nashville, September 9th. And so that session is on monthly giving. And one of those nights I'm hosting a intimate 20-person dinner that myself and a sponsor are co-partnering on. And I'm inviting a bunch of the speakers and other partners that are at the event. So it's influencer central and going to have books at everybody's seat, along with, there's a part in the book. Are you familiar with Jeeps and the Duck Duck Jeep?
No, what's Duck Duck Jeep?
So have you ever seen ducks on Jeep dashboards when you're driving?
You know what? I haven't, but now I'm probably going to see like them everywhere after this conversation.
So back during COVID, a woman in Canada started this trend just to be nice to somebody as a sign of respect. She left a rubber duck on someone's Jeep. And now Jeep owners all over, and Jeep has now taken it as like marketing campaigns where it's called Duck Jeep. And literally people will have 20 ducks on their dashboard. And I say that because on top of all of my book promotions, everyone's also getting a rubber duck. They're like these all different custom looking ducks. And the purpose of that tying back to the book is around branding. So that's the tie. They're going to have at the table for dinner, they're going to have a duck and they're going to have the book. Outside of that, I'm sending out book promotions, little boxes. And then I'm doing a partnership with Kendra Scott, the jewelry brand.
What's that going to be like?
Yeah, they have give back events in store. It's really about charitable living. And so I love Kendra Scott. If you're not familiar, has $1 billion business. She's been on Shark Tank lots of times. She has very strong give back philanthropy ingrained into her business and specifically around female entrepreneurship. And so I got to meet with them here in Atlanta and I met with their director of philanthropy. And she said, we do these give back events in store. So you just bring in friends and family. We'll create the invites for you. We provide champagne. It's called sips and sweets and like macarons. And they'll set up a table and you can do book sales. And then 20% of any sales in the store go back to an organization that you select. So super cool. So I'm picking 2 organizations. That one that started my career, Take Stock in Children in Sarasota, Florida. It's on September 18th. And then I'm doing one in Atlanta on September 7th, supporting the Hope Booth that I am a monthly donor for.
That's great. I think that matches so perfectly. Like it's all aligned. You mentioned you were sending out like promotional boxes. Who is that going to?
You're one of them.
Oh, yay.
It's going to, well, everyone, the 15 organizations that are mentioned in the book. So the nonprofit organizations, and then just friends and partners in the space to amplify awareness about the book. And so there's going to be like special note. The rubber ducks are really fun. They all have different personalities. So I'm going to try and match them to the personality of the person. So now I have to think of a really good one for you.
Can't wait to see what you choose. But that's great because that's going to be a reminder for me to share your book with all the nonprofits that I'm coming into contact with. So that's brilliant. And it's just a fun way to do that.
For sure.
Okay, so this is so good. This is so great. So we've gotten up like in the timeline of you wrote the book, you got a publisher, you're promoting the book. So what about after 2024 is over, right? Because this is going to be a part of your sort of like thought leadership ecosystem or thought leadership toolkit forever. Like you are always going to be an author. And so how, and maybe you haven't thought about this yet, but knowing you, you probably have, like how are you going to continue promoting and utilizing and sharing this book in 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, something that Allie, my publisher, said, Allie Trollbridge is her name. She's like, think about a book as the most powerful business card you have. So I'm going to have one. And why I designed it, I know you can't see it, user, but it's small. It's meant to be like grip in your hands. It's a paperback. I didn't do hardcover because I travel a lot. And so moving forward, I wanted to be like, hi, I'm Dana. Here's my book. Want to get to know me? There's so much in here that I could never begin to share with you on a podcast or on the stage or whatever, right? It goes into way more depth. So it's going to be used. I hope I sit next to somebody on a plane and they ask me what I do and I can pop one out, right? I hope at speaking gigs that I'll just carry them with me and be able to promote it. I don't know. I hope therefore it opens the doors to the other services that I offer. So in the book, I have QR codes where I provide additional resources and it brings people back to positiveequation.com/book. And then on my book page, there's not only information about how to order it, but I have resources that I'm mentioning in the book. And so it's a direct tie to how to work with me too.
That's great. Are those opt-ins? Like, will you get their email addresses as a result of them downloading those resources?
So it's super interesting is not on the resources, but for launch. And I guess I forgot to mention this for anybody who purchases, and maybe I will continue to do this moving forward during the pre-launch phase, I'm doing like a raffle. So when you order the book, you come back to the site. It has a step 1, step 2. Step 1, purchase the book. Step 2, come back, enter in your order number, first name, email address, and you'll be entered to win 3 months for free of my mini mastermind, which is worth $750, which is coaching calls and social media graphics to promote your monthly giving program. And so I'm doing that as a part of it. Because what's interesting is Amazon does not give you any information about who buys your book.
Wow.
And so this is my way of trying to understand who are these people that might be interested in the book and how can I communicate with them afterwards?
Yeah. And what a great gift. Like what a beautiful tie-in, first of all. It just always all makes sense with you.
Even like the raffle items for the monthly giving summit are like a raffle item is 2 months of a VA for 10 hours. And you and I both know how valuable that is for people to get work done. It's gifts for good gift cards. It like everything ties back to what they're trying to do. It's not just random stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking on that, as we move our conversation to a close, so this conversation is coming out September 11th, Wednesday, September 11th. So where are you going to be at in terms of can people buy the book now?
Yes. Yep. It is available. Came out September 3rd. So it's just positiveequation.com/book, or you can just search Monthly Giving Mastermind on Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
Perfect. And we'll put all of that in the show notes. Are there any other ways that you would love our listeners to connect with you?
My jam is your jam, which is LinkedIn. So you can find me there. If you do prefer Instagram, a more colorful video feed of what I do, you can head to Instagram, which is just Positive Equation with 1 E.
Perfect. We'll put all that in the show notes. And I'm a little out of practice doing my podcast. And I almost forgot that I ask everybody this question. This is the last question. What is your dreamy vision for the world? Because everybody that comes on this, that sits by us with the campfire is about leaving the world better than they found it. So what is your role in that? How do you want to leave the world better than you found it?
Yeah, my big mission that's been like the genesis of this book and my deep dive into monthly giving is I want everyone to feel like they can be a philanthropist.
Yeah.
And live charitably.
That's beautiful. Earlier you said charitable living, and I was like, didn't you mean to say charitable giving? I'm so used to hearing that, but no, it's charitable living. It's embodied and integrated into the way we live our life.
Just think about just how that changes how you approach the world, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Every decision's so different. Every conversation is so different.
Yes. What a beautiful lens. And we all know philanthropy just means the love of humankind. So if we just lived that way, what a different world we would have already.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I love that. Dana, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. This was such a great conversation.
Yay, I'm so glad. Listener, go write that book. You got it.
You've got it.
Here to answer any questions.
That book is inside of you. So can't wait to read it, friends.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thanks, Dana. Bye. Okay, so you've heard from us. Now I want to hear from you. Leaving a review helps us so much in growing our reach and supporting more folks with this podcast. And even better, I would love for you to send me a note on LinkedIn with your takeaways from this episode. I cherish and respond to every message, so I can't wait to hear from you. And if you want to go even deeper, check out the show notes to take your next step.